Hi. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about Yvette Nolan's play Annie Mae's Movement. Yvette Nolan is one of the best playwrights in Canada today. She is an indigenous playwright, half Algonquin, and so a lot of her plays, including Annie Mae's Movement, are about First Nations issues, indigenous rights issues, and so on and so on. And so this play is a really sort of comprehensive pulling together of various threads in the American Indian movement, which began, I think, in the 70s, maybe the 60s, but I think formally it began in the 70s. So it follows this character, Anna Mae, sometimes called Annie Mae, although she prefers Anna Mae. And she's centrally involved in the American Indian movement, which was an indigenous rights movement in the US and Canada that was heavily surveilled, I guess. It was heavily watched by the FBI, and they were regarded as terrorists in a sort of COINTELPRO kind of way. This sort of 60s, 70s use of FBI resources to watch anybody who was anti-war, anybody who was on the left, anybody who was an environmentalist, anybody who was pro-civil rights, etc., etc. The American Indian movement was one of those groups that was very heavily watched by the FBI. And so Anna Mae is one of these sort of leading figures, but she's also at these sort of confluences of patriarchal culture, because within the American Indian movement, within this organization that she's a part of, she very frequently has difficulty getting the male members to take her seriously. We see this with other female characters as well. The men are reluctant to listen to women. We also have, ironically, the FBI, who sort of thinks of Anna Mae, thinks of these other sort of female members as an easier target to get to turn on the movement and to sort of give them information, sell out the movement, etc., than the male members. And so the FBI particularly targets Anna Mae and tries to get her to crack. They also infiltrate the movement. They get undercover FBI guys in there who steal money from the organization. They start riots, they start fights and things like this, which was all very standard COINTELPRO kind of stuff. By the way, that's counterintelligence program, I think is the full-length version of it. Basically, it was anti-leftist of any kind. Thanks, J. Edgar Hoover. But basically, what the FBI attempts to do in this play is infiltrate the American Indian movement, and they try to split it apart from the inside. And one of the ways that they do that is by specifically raising doubts about Anna Mae's dedication. And so they build on this sort of patriarchal ideology within the movement, and and the FBI uses that to their advantage, because they raise doubts in the organization about Anna Mae's devotion. Of course, we get a lot from Anna Mae's perspective, so we know that she's not a traitor. We know that while money is being stolen, she is not doing it, and she has a suspect of who she thinks it is. But the leaders of this organization have stopped trusting her, and so she can't sort of redeem herself. So we get that sort of confluence of forces, not only the racist and imperialist forces of the US government attempting to put down an indigenous liberation movement, we also get the patriarchal forces both from that US government, but also within the American Indian movement itself. And so it's this sort of exploration of the multifaceted struggles that Anna May experiences, and that other indigenous women, other African American women, Hispanic women, and so on and so on, Chicano women, and so on and so on, have experienced even as they've been sort of devoted and energetic supporters of liberation movements, they've also had to consistently deal with these issues of sexism, patriarchy, and so on, that consistently devalue their contributions. And so that's sort of the interesting core of Annie Mae's movement, is this experience of multiple valences of oppression all coming together and working against the liberation that Anna Mae is so dedicated to achieving for her people.